There you are. A noble monument to a noble soul.
From here, Lord Orshafon can watch over all of Ishgard.
Welcome to another extensive guide for another ranged physical DPS job, namely the Machinist. While other ranged physical DPS jobs like the Dancer or Bard are more likely the supporting force, the Machinist focuses more on personal damage, through the use of different burst opportunities with hypercharged shots, wildfires or robotic assistance. His playstyle is very fast paced and his agility is unmatched when it comes to dodging AoEs or else. Still, the Machinist is sort of ping dependent because of those short time spans to use OGCDs in between burst shots, so try out for yourself if your Ethernet connection fits the speed of your man with a machine gun. And if you want to hear out my thoughts of his tier ranking, check the video in the description. When it comes to equipment and stats, the Machinist follows on the same steps like the Bard, with the biggest difference having a much lower value from skill speed. So our way should lead us into weapon damage, item level and critical rating again. After that, try to find a balance between direct hit and determination, because unlike the other jobs, the Machinist doesn't profit so heavily from direct hit because of reassemble making the next attack a direct hit anyways. While critical hit will also boost the max value of that critical hit, direct hit will only give you the chance for a static value boost. That is not increased by increasing direct hit values. Therefore, determination can be seen as nearly equal, but if you have chosen a high D-hit value due to the shared equipment with your Bard, don't worry too much about it. And yes, when looking at skill speed and when taking things seriously, you should mainly avoid skill speed at all to minimize any disalignment potential inside your rotation. Of course, if you have quite a bunch of skill speed from your Bard gear maybe, you won't be hurting yourself by that, so stay calm on gear decisions, they are tiered anyways. Coming to the battle system, we can see that the Machinist has been heavily simplified compared to his appearance in Stormblood. Especially the wildfire phase has been reduced significantly, while still providing the same feeling in my opinion. Okay, but what do we have to take care of? Like in most of the cases, we follow a hierarchy of ability uses, starting with Drill and Air Anchor, that are our heaviest potency attacks with 700 potency that we will always keep on cooldown, especially Air Anchor that also grants 20 battery gauge points. Furthermore, these combined with Reassemble result in heavy critical direct hit numbers, so we should always have one of these attacks ready when Reassemble's cooldown is coming back up. Therefore, we will start with Reassemble just before pulling to open the fight with a heavy drill attack. To follow on these occasions, try to let your Reassemble be the signaler for the use of your Automaton Queen, after the first pre-pull version of course. Your Automaton Queen is some sort of burst window, and when fitting it into reassemble timings, you mostly guarantee a solid raid synergy and buff lineup for the Queen. The Queen then will charge into battle and you actually don't even need to activate her self-detonation, like it was back in Stormblood. She will do this automatically when being deactivated. Okay, so much for these. Let us head back to the rotation and combos. While our heated split, slug and clean shot used to work with proc chances for getting up the next attack back in Stormblood, now they function a bit differently. Each attack will always activate the empowered version of the follow-up attack, like ordinary melee or tanking combo sequences. But with the exception that each consecution can be interrupted by any other ability except your AoE weapon skills. while also providing heat gauge with each attack and 10 battery gauge on the heated clean shot. Their interruptible trait comes in handy when we need to switch to our hypercharge phase. The hypercharge phase is started with its namesake and consumes 50 heat gauge points. These can be received through our combo or barrel stabilizer, which is an OGCD that will generate 50 heat points immediately. So try to use it as soon as possible and to keep it on cooldown, of course. Then that heat gauge should optimally never be overcapped, and somehow the same applies to your battery gauge as well. So much so good. And back to the hypercharge. Here your ping and a solid actions per minute ratio is demanded, and this is also the point where our wildfire finds its place. So we will be starting hypercharge and use our first burst shot that will trigger a much shorter recast timer than other weapon skills, while also reducing the remaining cooldown of ricochet and gauze round by 15 seconds. Oh, did I mention these? Not yet, I guess. Gauze round and ricochet are your get me into the target OGCDs, with incredible 3 stacks for each attack. That means we will use them early on to start at least one recast timer on both, and try to get rid of the whole stack arsenal when starting into hypercharge. Yes, exactly, because burst shots will reduce the cooldown and we will spam those in the hypercharge phase a lot. So now comes the whole magic this phase contains. Because of the short recast timer burst shots will trigger, there is only space for a single OGCD in between them. So with each burst shot we are forced to make wise decisions what to use during that short span of time. Therefore, after our first burst shot, we will choose Wildfire as the first in-between OGCD, followed by another burst shot, followed by either Gauze Round or Ricochet, which depends on your actual cooldown on both abilities. Always choose the one with lesser stacks and a minor cooldown. And so much for the offensives. Let us cover shortly the vast selection of utility and group support of the Machinist. Tactician. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time. No, wait. While Tactician may be the only job-specific defensive tool the Machinist has to offer, by granting your whole group a 10% damage mitigation over 15 seconds, this can be a really great weapon against heavy raid AoEs, like those in Eden 2 Savage for example. So never underestimate that single utility skill. Let us see this in detail with the opener established by handsome people of the balance. If you already watched my rotation video last week, navigate to the dungeon and AoE part directly. Nonetheless, let us start with the rotation. Like mentioned before, we will use reassemble at 4 seconds before pull and a pot when you can afford it on 2 seconds of the countdown, to grant our opening attack drill some very nice boom effect. Followed by our 2 OGCDs whose recast timers we want to start early on and try to never let their stacks being maxed again during the fight. Then we will start our combo, use barrel stabilizer as soon as possible, get rid of the second combo action and use air anchor for early battery gauge, and also starting its recast timer. Then we have the 2 OGCDs again, heated clean shot followed by gauze round and hypercharge, to start off the hypercharged spam rotation with wildfire. Take care to never double weave OGCDs on burst shots like I mentioned, because it has a very fast recast timer. So the first OGCD in between is Wildfire, to have the whole burst shot phase lined into its window. Then you will use burst shots and switch between Gauze Round and Ricochet to get their stacks used quite balanced. After the last burst shot we use another drill to land under Wildfire and start back into our normal rotation again. Now, we have to take care of our timings and CD lineup. Try to place hypercharge phases into recast timers of drill and air anchor, and time the use of drill and air anchor to fit onto reassemble. Your queen timing should be used right after the reassemble drill or air anchor, so you will naturally line it into the 60, 120 and 180 second windows, etc. And try to use barrel stabilizer before the next wildfire as another signaler for the next burst window. So stick to these guidelines or find some out by yourself. It really is much more simple than it looks and you can easily get used to it in no time. That mentioned, let us check out the dungeon and AoE section shortly. Shortly, because this is absolutely straightforward. Actually, you have a small but effective arsenal against multiple targets. The first being Bioblaster, that is your drill split into dot damage to many targets. Use this on cooldown and start the whole thing with that. Also take reassemble for either spread shot or auto crossbow, while spread shot is your standard AoE attack and auto crossbow the AoE version of your burst shots, started by hypercharge. That also means it consumes 50 heat gauge points. If you only have 2 targets, stick to burst shots instead and make use of the small AoE potential of ricochet, still dealing 50% to targets around your main target. Our flamethrower, whose functionality has improved a lot since Stormblood, still doesn't feel very satisfying, but at least provides a small peak of DPS gain compared to spread shooting. But take care, any form of movement or any action will cancel the channeling effect. So always choose wisely where you want to start your fiery siege. So all in all, use Bioblaster ASAP, use Barrel Stabilizer and head for hypercharged auto crossbow spamming, when your enemies are solidly stacked. Otherwise, use Flamethrower and Spreadshot in the meantime. What? We are already done? Yes. And while the Machinist turns out to be a very straightforward job with lots of logical battle designs, he nonetheless brings much fun to the table and quite a solid DPS as well. Although he could be seen as the Black Mage under those supporting ranged physicals, he doesn't bring with him those heavy peak numbers. But on the other hand, if there's any form of movement or transition phases, the Machinist shines with one of the best flexibility in-game that sometimes keeps his overall damage at a very good position. As always, I hope I could provide a solid foundation for getting started with this job, and maybe even some steps above that. But of course, if you really want to fine-tune our hypercharger, make some theory crafting by yourself, or check out those job specialized masters on the Balance Discord, or head for the written guide on their website. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more Final Fantasy content, and if you want more content than I have loaded onto YouTube, check out my Twitch channel for some live action. See you again in the next video, and until then, take care and beware of dangerous leg cramps.